Introduction. I don't have an expensive camera. I have a cell phone. I don't have a recording booth. I have my man cave. I call it the reliquary, which is just a nice way of saying my backyard shed. So please bear with me with the quality of the video and the background you see here. You may hear some scratching, which is a branch hitting the back of my shed. If people want to see more of this, I'll try to have better quality. I'll address all those different little issues. This is basically just to see how people will respond to this, okay? Now, with that out of the way, let's begin. Now, what this is going to be about is a philosophical, theological, Catholic perspective on different issues. At least that's the idea. For today, we have two main topical questions we're going to look at. What is man, as in the human person? You know, what is manhood? What is mankind in general? And then the specific, what is man? Okay, what is manhood, masculinity? How do we see it? What are some of the core things we can look at so that we can maybe blossom into understanding more specific things? But today we're just going to try to hit a general thing. Now, the way this came up was with a discussion with a friend who suggested I make a video on it, maybe sharing some thoughts on this issue, okay? And what we were doing when we were talking, we were looking at the church and society and the different problems we see going on, and what do we see as some problems about that, okay? Now, along with me in this little discussion is one of my favorite pastimes, cigars. And this is the La Gloria Cubana. If in case you're interested, you might not care, but that's what I've got, all right? Usually I'll smoke a pipe too, okay? So you might see me with that later, if there are other videos to come, all right? Now, so looking at those two questions, where we got those questions from was these specific problems we were seeing in the world and the church, okay? Now, there are a bunch of problems to look at. There's a bunch of causes. We're going to look at sexual identity as a big problem going on in today's culture, society, and in the church as well, okay? So, I have some notes here. Started all this notes, they're more like a script at this point, so I'm going to be reading a lot from that, okay? And interjecting every now and again my own thoughts that pop in, all right? But I mostly worked out what I was going to say and think and ended up just typing it up. So as you see me glance off and that kind of thing, that's what I'm looking at, all right? So, the problem. Let's start with that. Manhood, masculinity, has been under attack. In fact, sexual identity of the human person as a whole has been under attack. Society no longer understands or even believes in manhood or womanhood as an object of reality with philosophical and theological meaning. We can see this in the homosexual and transsexual ideologies. Manhood and womanhood are of no real meaning in those ideologies. Thus, it doesn't matter if someone engages in homosexual acts, as the only difference are the sexual organs, which, as we said, once again, has no real meaning beyond a part of biology. Right? It doesn't have any deeper meaning. Now, if the homosexual actions and lifestyles says that about the human person, it really doesn't matter. Do whatever you want, it's just plumbing, right? Doesn't matter. Then the transsexual is a logical progression of the same idea. If what the homosexual says, like we just said, is true, then all those confused feelings that the transsexual has must also be true. And if the human body is just biology, right, doesn't have any deeper meaning, then it's okay to mutilate that body, to change it, to transition, as they call it, all right? Cardinal Sarah is a bishop from Africa, and he said, and it is no surprise, when God is abandoned, man is also abandoned. There is no longer a clear vision of who man is. This is a great anthropological crisis in the West, and it leads to people being treated like objects. Pope Francis, speaking to Polish bishops about gender ideology, said, "Gender ideology represents the annihilation of man as the image of God. The idea that manhood has been lost can be seen in the church as well. Right now, as I'm recording this, China is attempting to force itself upon the authority of the church by deciding who will be ordained as bishops. Thus, they're usurping the chair of Peter. And the Vatican seems to be selling out to the Chinese government under the justification of wanting to get along with the government in the hopes that they will treat the church better and allow bishops and priests to be in areas where they are needed. Now, this submissive posture of the church to a government attempting to usurp power from the church is a symptom of the loss of true masculine leadership. So, that is the problem I'm addressing here, or commenting on. Now, it's not the only problem, as I said before. Nor is a confused sexual identity the only cause of that problem. But it is indeed a problem that needs to be addressed. And it's a cause, a symptom. And that's what we're going to get to. So what's the answer, right? What's the possible solution? Now, everyone has an opinion. This is simply mine, okay? The answer here is to remind ourselves what is the human person and what is manhood. For that, I'm going to look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the CCC as we call it, just the 3 letters, and some philosophy. Any discussion that excludes theology or the church is half an answer, thus incomplete. So, I'll start there. So in the Catechism, in 355, paragraph 355, the church summarizes the answer to the first question: what is man? Man occupies a unique place in creation. 1, he is in the image of God. 2, in his own image, he unites the spiritual and material worlds. Number 3, he is created male and female. Number 4, God established him in his friendship. So right off the bat, you have at least 4 principles of what mankind is, what the human person is. So first, he's in the image of God, so his life is sacred. Okay, he's holy. He's set apart for God. 2, in his own nature, he unites the immaterial, spiritual world, the spiritual realm, with the material. Right? We are an incarnate spirit, body and spirit. See, we need both. You could say that, you could also relate that to philosophy and theology. Philosophy is not material, but it has to do with our reason, right? And theology flows from that as well, and vice versa. But it's dealing more with the spiritual. Okay, so both of those things come together; it completes each other. We like to say in the church, faith completes reason, and that is merely an acknowledgement of the reality that we are both matter and spirit. Now, thirdly, we are created male and female. Now, that's not an accident. We are man and woman by design. It's not just an accident, which the gender ideology tries to make man and woman simply accidental. There's really nothing different except maybe the plumbing or looks, which in philosophy would say those are the accidents, right? But it's not simply accidental. It's by design. And finally, God established him in his friendship. So we're supposed to have this relationship with God. He's not just the giant watchmaker in the sky. Some philosophers said the spaghetti monster in the sky, right? No, he's actually connected to us, and we to him, all right? And we see that primarily in the incarnation of Jesus Christ, but that's some other video. Now, in the Catechism 356, of all the visible creatures, only man is able to know and love his Creator. He is the only creature on earth that God has willed for its own sake, and he alone is called to share by knowledge and love in God's own life. It was for this end that he was created, and this is the fundamental reason for his dignity. So your source is in God. The source of your dignity is in God. But your end as well, your goal, your purpose is also God. We would say we're here to know God, to love God, to serve God, and to be with him for all eternity. In 357 of the Catechism, paragraph 357, Being in the image of God, the human individual possesses the dignity of a person who is not just something, but someone. He is capable of self-knowledge, of self-possession, and of freely giving himself and entering into communion with other persons. The Catechism continues in 365. The unity of soul and body is so profound that one has to consider the soul to be the form of the body, meaning spirit and matter in man are not two natures united, but rather their union forms a single nature. So we can't divorce the two. Both the spirit and the physical body, it's not, I believe it was the Gnostics, I may have that one wrong, but I believe it was the Gnostics who said that the body is evil and the spirit's trapped inside trying to get out. No. We're united to our body. Finally, the last one I'm going to use is Catechism 372. Man and woman were made for each other. Not that God left them half-made and incomplete. He created them to be a communion of persons in which each can be helpmate to the other, for they are equal as persons, which in Genesis is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, and complementary as masculine and feminine. In other words, we work together, okay? We work together. We complement each other. It's not that one is better than the other. We're different, but we're equal. So, mankind has meaning beyond basic animalistic instinct. Man is created by design for a purpose. So he's designed, and he's designed for a purpose. So this is to say sexual identity is not an accident. It is willed, designed, and thus cannot be simply denied. Man and woman are complementary, and how that is expressed is through the body, because man is in our incarnate spirit. Get it? I hope that was clear, because I kind of repeated myself maybe 2 or 3 times. We cannot just throw out the body. We cannot just say, well, man and woman doesn't matter. It does. We're made for each other. And if there is no difference, it's all the same, then we're not made for each other. We're just animals running around. You know, we have no personhood. All right, so to make this quick, I'm already at 13 minutes. I wanted to keep it at 10, but it's running long. Sorry. So what about manhood itself, right? Well, let's get into that. For manhood, I'm going to go into some philosophy here, and I'm going to start with Aristotle. And I'm also going to borrow from an article I read on a website called The Art of Manliness. So when I'm reading some quotes here, it's going to be mostly from The Art of Manliness, but also a little bit of Aristotle. Very little Aristotle, mostly from The Art of Manliness. If you want more, it's a really good article. Look it up, The Art of Manliness. What is manliness? Is where I took it from. Okay? Anyway, Aristotle was a Greek ancient philosopher, for those who don't know. And he came to the conclusion that manliness is eudaimonia. And what that is, it's a Greek word that simply means human flourishing. Now, some have called it happiness, but it has more to do with being the best you can be, being excellent, excellence. The true man is one who seeks excellence in all things. Now, the question it leaves us with is what do we mean by excellence? Well, for Aristotle, that meant, quote, that man's purpose was to take actions guided by rational thought that would lead it to excellence, the best, in every aspect of his life. Thus, manliness meant being the best man you can be. Now, from the Greeks, we go to the Romans. Okay, now if I want to keep this video short, I can't go through all of Greek philosophy. I can't go through all of this. I have to jump around. So, from Greek, we go to the Romans, who were heavily influenced by the Greeks. So, the Romans took those Greek ideas and developed their own concept of manliness. Quote, to be manly, a man had to cultivate virtues like courage, temperance, industry, and dutifulness. Thus, for the ancient Romans, manliness meant living a life of virtue. Now, here's where it's going to sync up. This is where this all comes together, right? And that's the beauty of our Catholic Church, is that the Catholic Church takes from the Greek philosophers, takes from modern philosophers, takes a little bit from everywhere, and keeps the good, discards what doesn't work, okay, what's not good. So in the Roman Catholic Church would agree with this. Quote, a virtue according to the church, is an habitual and firm disposition to do the good. It allows the person not only to perform good acts, but to give the best of himself. There's the Greek part, right? That excellence. The virtuous person tends toward the good with all his sensory and spiritual powers. He pursues the good and chooses it in concrete actions. In other words, the more virtuous we are, the more we flourish. And when I use that word flourish, think of prosper, right? Or being more prosperous. And in the Catechism 1804, human virtues are firm attitudes, stable dispositions, habitual perfections of intellect and the will, right? It's our will that govern our actions, order our passions, and guide our conduct according to reason and faith. They make possible ease, self-mastery, and joy in leading a morally good life. The virtuous man is he who freely practices the good. The moral virtues are acquired by human effort. They are the fruit and seed of morally good acts. They dispose all the powers of the human being for communion with divine love. Now, if you're paying attention, what I just read to you there, that philosophy was just connected to the theology. So now we have a full, complete understanding. We took that philosophy of eudaimonia and virtue and connected it with divine love. So it's leading us into this spirituality. There, the body, the physical, the matter is brought into the spiritual. So we're rising from philosophy to theology. We're going higher, okay? Now, I would also add that the word excellence also means mastery. One virtue that is encouraged very strongly, perhaps the greatest of them, is self-mastery. It is mastering ourself that allows us to seek and live out the other virtues. Self-mastery implies discipline, which is the foundation of all other actions. Self-mastery also directly correlates to fortitude and standing strong in the midst of temptation and against what is wrong, even when our feelings do not agree. Now, the part about our feelings, even when our feelings don't agree, these people who deal with same-sex attraction and transgender and the feelings and emotions they're having and the thoughts, okay, I don't deny that they're there. I don't pretend like you're just making it up or that you're choosing that to have those feelings. I have no problem with saying, maybe there is something going on with you innately, okay? But we have to express self-mastery. There's a lot of feelings and thoughts that people have about a lot of things. But it has to be brought into order, okay? Mastery, discipline of reason, of the mind, okay? Not just justifying all our feelings. And otherwise, we start to, once again, deny our creation. We're denying that we are body and soul. We're denying that we have a purpose, that we're set apart, sanctified, right? Have a purpose, design. See, I'm trying to use both the philosophical and theological terms. All those terms come together, okay? So, in the end, finally, to be a man means we are to be virtuous. Now, a woman is also called to be virtuous, but once again, the expression of virtue will differ at times. While there may be some overlap, there are other times when they don't. And that is where we see the dividing line between man and woman, demonstrating the differences of the sexes. Okay, well, we see how a man lives out virtue is different than, say, how a woman lives out virtue. Now, some of those may kind of connect, but generally speaking, they're done differently, okay? And that's why when we say, well, gee, you're not acting like a man. You're not being manly, right? You're not seeking out the virtue in the way in which a man would do so. Now, assuming that man and woman are expressing a virtue and not some twisted idea of virtue, because sometimes we can take these ideas and twist them to justify whatever we want, right? But assuming you're not doing that, assuming it's a true virtue and you're seeking it out, okay, then your expression, as long as it's holding to that, is not wrong necessarily, okay? A man or woman's expression of virtue is not better than the other, but they are different. So, conclusion. To be a man, seek excellence in all things. Be a man of virtue. Be a man of honor. That's what it is to be masculine. Okay? Now, what are those specific virtues, right? What are those? Well, hey, if you found this helpful, maybe we can make another video and go into the virtues and what they are, maybe some examples of how we live those out, okay? Let me know. If you found this helpful, you enjoyed it, let me know. If you want more, I'll do that. I'll try and have a better setup next time too, okay? So, with that, God bless.